It's time for overtime.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Steps back, three. Yes, sir.
Get a shot up. This is for the win.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Welcome into the Thursday edition of Overtime. We loved Super Vikings Thursday last week so much. We're doing it again. Dustin Baker of Vikings territory. Janik Eckhart from overseas. He's here in studio with PurplePTSD.com, set to recap another win for the Minnesota Vikings as I continually, week after week, bash my head against the wall. And you Vikings fans out there, put your hands up in the air. You keep on winning. Minnesota 11-2, dominant win. Close game mostly throughout the game. Fourth quarter busted open as Atlanta takes it on the chin. Minnesota 11-2, still giving good chase to the Detroit Lions. They'll meet up with Detroit in just a few weeks and fire up the debate cannons. I'm excited to see, although I probably know the answer because these two gentlemen across from me are really darn rational. Sam Darnold, should he be back? Could he be back? What all do we need to know about that potential re-signing? Franchise tag floated out there, a lot up for debate this week. I puzzled and questioned the listeners early in the week. What is the best option for Sam Darnold? Could it be a one-year deal, two-year team-friendly deal? Could he be the Vikings starter next season? What would you like to see? You're always welcome to weigh in on the show at 605-362-3776. That is all on the table coming up in hour number one. We also got who wins and why for week 15 and more. Hour number two, headlines and highlights, the latest from the NFL, injury news you need to know about, the good, the bad, the ugly, and best bets for Army, Navy, FCS college football playoffs, and more. Brad Powers of BradPowersports.com set to join us around 12:40. Let's dive into the scorecard now. First things first, Thursday Night Football tonight. The spread is back up to 3 in favor of the home team. That's the San Francisco 49ers. Running back Isaac Guerrero likely to play, and if you have him in fantasy football, get him off the bench and into your starting lineup. He's going to have a lot of work tonight. Rams and Niners. Dan Orlovsky talking about dangerous the Rams could be down the stretch.
What I've told everybody for weeks is when they're healthy, they can win the whole thing. And yesterday, they were healthy. And when they're healthy, they could beat anybody on their schedule. And if you're Detroit or if you're Philadelphia, you better pray that this offense doesn't get into the playoffs. Because when it's Kyren Williams and Puka and Cooper Kupp, they score about 30 a game. They could beat anybody.
They could beat anybody, just like the Cincinnati Bengals could beat anybody, but the defense is a massive problem in Cincinnati. It is more of a problem than the offense in L.A. as well. The Rams rank in the bottom 6 of the National Football League in yards per game allowed this year, and the Rams defense is allowing 25.5 points per game. That is not traditionally a winning number. That ranks in the bottom 10 in the National Football League as well. The teams around the Rams defensively in those metrics right now: Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Atlanta, Cleveland, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Cincinnati. You're catching a theme here. Not really good football teams. The Ravens are a good football team, of course. The Falcons are okay. The Bucs are okay. But I do believe that the Rams could be a playoff team this year, and they can play with anybody. Can they sustain it? Just as my concern with the Green Bay Packers that I voiced yesterday, Green Bay can play with anybody. They could beat anyone in the NFL. I'm confident in that statement, but could they do it 3-4 weeks in a row in the postseason? I'm not so sure as of right now. Rams and Niners coming up tonight, 7:15 on Prime Video. Niners are a 3-point favorite according to ESPN Bet. Sunday slate, a lot of intriguing games. Most most of the juicy matchups are all in the same window. 3:25. Chiefs at Browns is a noon start. Colts at Broncos, Bills at Lions, Steelers at the Eagles. All three games at 3:25 on Sunday afternoon. Here's Evan Cohen and Chris Canty talking up the battle for the Keystone State, better known as Pennsylvania.
I'm going to say we're going to learn more about Jalen Hurts because I want to know what happens this weekend with he and A.J. Brown. I want to know if he starts forcing the ball to him. I want to know if he stays true to what the Eagles are great at, which is just running the football. I don't need to learn anything about Russell Wilson. He's had a phenomenal comeback season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to be in the playoffs. He is absolutely fit in perfectly. You guys can make fun of the fact that CC and I bring up the secret handshakes he has. We believe it's important. Why? Because for a guy that was considered not a teammate with the Broncos, you got secret handshakes with everybody. You're doing something. You have some sort of camaraderie there. We're going to learn more about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, Russ is a champion, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is third in completions of 20 yards or more this season. So we know what that is. With Jalen Hurts, with A.J. Brown, the passing game ain't right. That's obvious. I don't know whose fault it is, but it is a problem that they got to get fixed. We'll see if they can get that done against one of the best defenses in the league in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers and the Eagles, one-time joint football program known as the Steagles. They're very far apart right now. Couple high-quality football teams colliding. 3:25 on Fox on Sunday afternoon. Sunday Night Football, Packers at Seahawks, 7:20 on NBC. Monday Night Football doubleheader begins, and these are pretty mirrored games, unfortunately, but Bears at Vikings is a go time of 7 o'clock. Falcons at Raiders, 7:30. The more watchable of the two, NFC North battle from the Twin Cities, 7 o'clock on ABC, where the Vikings are a 7-point favorite. College football coming up on Saturday. Best game of the year every single year. Navy and Army from Landover, Maryland. That's a 2 o'clock go time on CBS. FCS playoffs begin tomorrow night. Idaho visiting Montana State. The Bobcats are the number 1 seed in the FCS college football playoffs, playing home in Bozeman, 8 o'clock on ESPN Friday night. Saturday, Incarnate Word battling South Dakota State up in Brookings for the second time this season. That gets going at 11 o'clock on ESPN. UC Davis, the opponent for USD. That is the smallest spread in terms of margin, anticipated margin in the FCS playoff field this weekend. That's a 2 o'clock kick time from the Dakota Dome, ESPN Plus with your TV coverage. And Mercer, the opponent for the North Dakota State Bison up in the Fargo Dome, 2:30 Saturday on ABC. The big news shaking up the college football world. Some dude named Bill Belichick wants to coach the UNC Tar Heel football program, and he will. Here's ESPN's Adam Schefter on the short-term reasoning as to why the legendary NFL coach has decided to dip down into the college game.
Short-term answer is he and North Carolina have been talking now for about a week. The talks have intensified. They've met a couple of times in person, and there were a lot of issues for the two sides to sift through. And late Wednesday afternoon, the two sides found enough common ground to bridge their differences together to result in that 5-year contract agreement that sent ripples across the college football and the national football coaching landscape.
That's ESPN's Adam Schefter. Now over to ESPN's Pete Thamel, who thinks this is all about a big message being sent across the sport of football, pro and collegiate.
And when you look at this from 30,000 feet, this is North Carolina telling the SEC. This is North Carolina telling the Big Ten. We are in the big-time football business, even though we've really only won big at a truly elite level in basketball in recent years.
North Carolina back on the map. Chapel Hill, North Carolina, now the home of a lot of cutoff sweaters and a lot of curmudgeon-y nature for Bill Belichick coming down to town. Paul Feinbaum talking about if Bill Belichick will be able to hang around. Nick Saban just retired from the college game. And, of course, people saying it's really tough to be a college coach these days, especially for a 60, 70-year-old. Bill Belichick, mid-70s. Paul Feinbaum talking about if he can roll with the punches better than Saban.
He's not going to have to deal with the usual problems that most college coaches deal with. Why did Nick Saban bail out a year ago, Greedy? Because he couldn't handle players coming up to him on the plane, going to the Rose Bowl for the national championship, saying, what am I going to make when this is over? Belichick's already delegated that.
He already has delegated that, and it's been pretty impressive so far to see the lineup of opportunities that Belichick has solidified. Michael Lombardi will be the general manager. They'll have director of high school scouting, director of college scouting. This is going to be a pro personnel department with a lot of big veteran NFL names in it at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Going to be exciting to watch, and a new post-retirement from the NFL adventure for one Bill Belichick. Cam Ward, quarterback who has had a couple different landing spots during his collegiate career, most recently quarterbacking the Miami Hurricanes. He's one of 4 of the Heisman finalists this year. Here's what he had to say about what it would mean for him to win the trophy this year.
I think it mean, more to my parents than what it would mean to me. Just the sacrifice that they did for me financially. And, physically coming to all my football games, my family who's been there to support me. So, it'll be a huge accomplishment for the whole family, the community in Miami, myself personally. But I'm just seeing, what the voters talking about. So I'm gonna go watch that tape.
Miami Hurricane quarterback Cam Ward, one of 4 finalists for this year's Heisman Trophy. Travis Hunter of Colorado, the odds-on favorite. NBA Cup quarterfinals last night. Couple upsets. Atlanta over the Knicks, 108-100, and Houston in a defensive bout, 91-90, edging out against the Golden State Warriors. Houston is 17-8 on the season. Tonight in the NBA, 3 games not a part of the NBA Cup. Pistons at Celtics, 6:30. Raptors at Heat, same time. Kings visit the Pelicans. That's a 7 o'clock go time. Women's basketball, dominant home effort for SDSU. 26 points for Haley Timmer in a 76-48 win against Dakota Wesleyan. Minnesota back on the right track following a loss earlier in the week. 81-43 win over Jackson State. Nebraska over Tarleton State, 63-50. Huskers are 9-1. And Iowa wins the first half of that Cyhawk showdown on the basketball court this week. Iowa over Iowa State, 75-69 in Iowa City. And tonight in women's hoops, UConn and Notre Dame from South Bend, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Men's basketball, tough road trip for SDSU to Reno. They lose to Nevada, 77-63. Jackrabbit men are 8-4. And tonight in men's basketball, more Cyhawk basketball. Iowa playing host to third-rated Iowa State. That is a 6:30 go time on Fox Sports 1. Hockey World update, Rangers over the Sabres 3-2, and Ottawa dominates at home against Anaheim 5-1. Senators are 13-2. Tonight in the NHL, Wilder back in action in St. Paul, 7:30 puck drop as they play host to Edmonton. Colorado home to Utah at 8 o'clock. Blues home to the Sharks at 7 o'clock. And the Blackhawks out in Long Island matching up with the Islanders, a 6:30 start time on ESPN+. And a reminder, Augustana hockey back in action tonight. It's a 10 o'clock start time tonight. 10 o'clock tomorrow night. They're battling the Seawolves of the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. A lot to look forward to there. Follow along, GoAugie.com. That's a look at your scorecard, all the happenings over the last 24 hours or so. And now it's time to enter Vikings territory, literally. VikingsTerritory.com, the home of Dustin Baker and Janik Eckhart. Eckhart also a contributor at PurplePTSD.com. Gentlemen, welcome back for another week. How we doing?
We cannot complain. We thought collectively the Vikings would be about a 7-10, 8-9 team when the season started, and bada bing, we're here chatting with you at 11-2.
Got to feel pretty good. Janik, what did you take away from the win against the Falcons?
Well, it was a really fun win. So it was probably one of the best wins we've had in a long time, and Vikings are cruising and still in contention for the division.
How would you rate the overall boo-ometer, if you will, for Kirk Cousins? Was it about half the crowd? Was it less than half? Was it louder than you expected? What was the overall reception for Kirko Chains in the Twin Cities this past weekend?
Early in the game, and when they came out of the tunnel, it was pretty loud boos. Later, I guess it was they cheered for him after the game when he left the field. So I think they really had to boo him one time, and that's it.
Yeah, certainly a great performance for Sam Darnold. 5 touchdowns, no picks. Coming into this year, Sam Darnold had never had a single game in his career with 4 touchdowns and no picks. He's done that this year. And now he's done 5 touchdowns and no picks. He keeps climbing up a little bit, playing better. He's off the midseason slide that he had in the pair of losses. How impressed were you with Sam Darnold, Dustin?
Well, wickedly. When we look back now at that Jaguars game, I can't remember if I said this on your show last week. Some of us were paranoid, like, is this kind of the beginning of his downtrend? And he's turning back into a pumpkin. And now that we look back, we have to realize and have the grace to understand it was a single bad game. And other quarterbacks, even the top ones in the sport, have bad games. It's just that when it's Darnold, who has this slim margin of error in the public opinion, court of public opinion, we skewered him for it, but he has bounced back marvelously. He was in peak form against the Falcons. Now, the Falcons have a pretty bad secondary, so I tried to taper the excitement a little bit, but to Janik's point, this was the most fun Vikings win in ages. There have been better wins, more impactful triumphs, but just the entertainment value when those bombs are flying to Jefferson and Addison, it made it really fun to watch and in our case be at.
And certainly it was the highest point total of the year for Minnesota, 42 points, besting the early season 31 points they scored in a win against the Green Bay Packers. That was a first half onslaught in that game. Anything that you learned about Minnesota that you haven't seen yet this year, Janik, from this past Sunday? Anything stand out to you on the football field?
Let's see. So early in the game, Vikings were down 7-0, turned the ball over or punted. And in the past, this team could crumble when they were down and the opponent had the ball, and bad thing happened after bad thing. And this time it didn't. They kept coming back. They threw it deep, threw bombs to Addison and Jefferson, and it just didn't care about about the scoreboard.
Dustin, we talk all the time about the strength of the receiving core. TJ Hawkinson, KJ Osborne is available, by the way. We'll talk about that in a little while. You don't want to talk about it. We will talk a little bit about... Oh, he's not available.
Commanders.
Commanders, okay. So now, not available anymore. You don't want to talk about it. Anyways, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, we know they're really good. I think that was showcased to the nth degree on Sunday. That's probably the best tandem game that they've had together.
Yeah, that's why this game was so exciting and fun. In my verbiage was we've never seen those two feast at the exact same time to that degree. They've both had good games at the same time, and even in the Diggs and Thielen era, there'd be games where both guys did well. But this was like all Pro Bowl type performances, separate but equally from both dudes. The one thing that I enjoyed about this game was late in the fourth quarter, middle of the fourth quarter, Vikings were up, I think, by 2 scores. And finally, we had a drive that went, I think, 90 yards. We ran the football with Cam Akers, and we didn't get, complacent and say, yeah, we're up by 2 scores. We'll go 3 and out and punt it. We can play defense. It was one of the first times in recent Vikings memory where they closed out a game with an offensive drive, and your guy, Aaron Jones, scored the touchdown on that drive. So that was my takeaway, that there is this hope. We got to see it this Monday night and thereafter at Seattle. There's this hope that the offense has turned the corner and is really, really good, and that would be accompanied by the Flores defense that's already pretty damn decent. That is our great hope to perhaps nibble at this Super Bowl push.
5-touchdown performance for Sam Darnold. Where does that rank for you? I know Dante Culpepper had a lot of big games. Kirk Cousins had some big 3-touchdown, 4-touchdown, a lot of yardage games. Recent memory, where does that rank as far as really great quarterback performances for Minnesota?
Wow, quarterback performance. So we've been lucky enough to have a lot from Adrian Peterson and Justin Jefferson over the years, but this game was leaps and bounds better than a single game that Kirk Cousins ever had. And I'm not kidding. This season that Darnold has put together statistically from almost every metric is better than Cousins ever had. And that's weird to say out loud, but if you look at any efficiency metric and the touchdown metric, which is going to end up about 37 or 38 for Darnold, he's played better than Cousins. I'd have to probably throw it back to the 2009 season with Favre, and he may not have had a gaudy game with 5 touchdowns, but he was always trustworthy that year. And you just complimented him with Adrian Peterson, by the way.
A lot of storylines, a lot of highlights from another win for Minnesota. They are 11-2. We'll continue to recap the Falcons game, preview the Chicago Bears game as part of a Monday Night Football doubleheader. We'll also talk a lot more about Sam Darnold. What is realistic? Last week we were in here talking about what does he have to do now? Where does the bar have to be? Does he have to win a Super Bowl to be back? 5-touchdown performance. He is a known commodity. He could regress a little bit, but I said yesterday on the show and earlier this week, as much as you love J.J. McCarthy, and this is a broad strokes you out there, as much as you love the potential, love the young man, his draft stock, he's not a known commodity. Sam Darnold is, and he's got double-digit wins, and here we are, not even into Week 15. How much should Minnesota pony up and offer Sam Darnold? Should they make an offer? Reportedly, not talking too much just yet. All of that on the table as we continue with Super Minnesota Vikings Thursday here on Overtime. Bert Rameen here with you, Dustin Baker of Vikings Territory, and Janik Eckhart of PurplePTSD.com. We continue to talk Purple football coming up next on Overtime.
us online, stream us on the app. Streaming now. Overtime with Bert Rameen on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO. Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you on this Thursday, December 12th edition of Overtime. It is the final show of the week. I'm off tomorrow. I'm off Monday. Big beefy weekend for yours truly. I will miss you guys, but stay tuned. We don't have a Friday parlay this weekend, but I do have a cool contest cooked up, literally cooked up for hour number 2, brought to you by Honey Baked Ham. Stay tuned. Opportunity for 5 callers to get in on a really cool football-themed contest over the long weekend. Minnesota Vikings chatter throughout this first hour on your Thursday. We've got Janik Eckhart of Purple PTSD, Dustin Baker of Vikings territory with us. Janik, let's talk about 11-2. We have not talked to you preseason. We talked to you for the first time ever last week. What were your honest expectations for Minnesota coming into this season record-wise?
I think I picked 8 and 9, and I was one of the more optimistic people.
Yep.
Which should tell you a lot about our preseason expectations, and especially after J.J. McCarthy went down, we just no way Sam Darnold could lead a team to the postseason. But well, he's doing it, aided by Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and of course Kevin O'Connell's coaching.
The number of plays that Sam Darnold made that made you say, wow, this past weekend were quite a few. The one that to me that stood out the most is when he escaped the pocket at a very rapid pace, a lot faster than most of us thought Sam Darnold could run, bombed it downtown, JJ gets the catch, and of course the Vikings defensive or the Falcons defensive backs nowhere to be found on Sunday. What impresses you the most situationally and talent-wise for Sam Darnold?
He has a good arm. We've always talked about his arm, and he can make every throw on the field. What impressed me the most is his mobility. I didn't expect him to be quite as mobile and get out of the pocket as well as he does. It's no comparison to Kirk Cousins. Over the years, we've seen him in the pocket like a statue, and Darnold is not that. He's a playmaker. He can get out of the pocket like a Joe Burrow light.
Certainly a lot of big success for the Minnesota Vikings. Dustin, if you were to talk about offensive tendencies, this is a passing football team, if we're being honest about it. Minnesota has 3,359 yards passing. They have 1,471 yards rushing. They only have 5 running plays this year, the entire season, of 20 yards or more. How big of a concern is the lack of running game, lack of consistency, lack of big plays in the running game for you if this team's going to go on a deep playoff run?
It is a large one, but it has improved. That's why I don't spend too much time bellyaching about it. When O'Connell got here 2 years ago, Dalvin Cook was ending his time, and we could see the signs that he wasn't the same guy. And then last year was utterly horrendous. They invested in Alexander Mattison. That experiment didn't work. So Aaron Jones has been an upgrade. He's on pace for, I think, 1,500-something yards from scrimmage. The best part about the running game this year is that they don't abandon it when things get rotten. I always say that Kevin O'Connell, at heart, is a quarterback who rests on his laurels, and if it was up to him, he'd probably just throw the ball 80% of the time. But you have to be able to run the football in this league. So they, unlike last year, they have committed to the run, even if it isn't as efficient as we would like. So my great hope is that they bring Aaron Jones back for 1 year and then draft somebody with the third-round compensatory pick they'll get for Kirk leaving. But on the whole, I will say I am happy with the run game because it's improving. But that was my one grievance coming into this season, that if O'Connell can't figure out how to run the ball in general as a matter of play calling percentage and then not do it effectively, that's the one thing that could get him run out of town. And thankfully, it's starting to trend in the right direction.
One topic we have not touched on because we did get a little bit of an update on it. We talked about it in the offseason when it happened, the potential repercussions of it. Jordan Addison, I was about to say Justin Addison. Jordan Addison's legal situation. We got another little kind of wrinkle in that. What's the latest on that situation? Could he be suspended regular season, postseason, or is it more likely to be next season for Addison?
I would say he will likely be suspended, and it will happen start of next season. He pled not guilty, which was a little weird because this seemed like one of those where he'd plead out. But I think perhaps pleading not guilty was a tactic to get it pushed into the offseason, and then he can, come clean, if you will, and pay the piper. From what I read and learned about that event in July, he needs to stop driving in the month of July. Back-to-back summers where he's done some pretty naughty things on the road. My takeaway is that there's going to be a suspension, but I just don't think it would happen this year. I think it's going to be pushed off until next offseason, and then we'll have time to plan for that roster-wise if he's not available for the first month.
That's the latest update on Jordan Addison. If he could potentially be suspended, likely to be a 3-game suspension based on NFL rules. And again, all of that dependent upon the wrapping up and the conclusion of that legal situation stemming from that July arrest. Janik, let's talk a little bit about quarterback protection, because if you're looking for kind of a negative in Sam Darnold's game, the dude does take quite a few sacks. He's got the third most sacks taken in the NFL. He's been sacked 40 times, 41 for C.J. Stroud, and then an insane 56 sacks taken by rookie number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams in Chicago. We'll talk about him in due time. Sam Darnold, what does it take for Minnesota to get a little bit better protection for him, or is that just kind of his style that he might be under pressure and take a lot more sacks than most quarterbacks in the league?
It is a mix of both. Sam Darnold, he does not have to just throw the ball away to a receiver 3 yards down the field gene that Kirk Cousins has. He wants to make plays. He wants to escape the pocket. He wants to throw it downfield. So he's in part responsible to it, but also the interior offensive line is just, it has been bad for years, and it's still bad. Bradbury at center is a run blocker. Brandel, he was a backup last year. He's all right, but he's not a star guard. And at right guard, they inserted Dalton Reisner for Ed Ingram, he's a better pass protector, but he's also not a Pro Bowl caliber player. So it's in part the offensive line and partly just Darnold trying to make plays.
Sam Darnold, again, top 3 in number of sacks taken. He's top 10 in most good categories this year, ranked 6th in the NFL in passing yardage. He's a top 5 guy in yards per completion as well, yards per game, all sorts of great stuff. Sam Darnold, Pro Bowl bid, how likely is that, Dustin?
The field is really crowded when you sit down and crunch those numbers, especially with lifetime achievement, like if you factor in Matthew Stafford, and then Jordan Love has the big name appeal, and then you got Jalen Hurts, and then Jaden Daniels. I think when it's all said and done with injuries and dudes flat out bowing out and not playing, that Darnold will get the nod, and he'll deserve it. And I can't believe we're saying this about Sam Darnold. I would say that is the most likelihood, but on like the first ballot, probably not, because there's already too many big names in front of him. But I wouldn't rule it out.
The Chicago Bears, the opponent, Monday Night Football doubleheader. Let's preview that game now, because we got a debate coming up next segment. Sam Darnold, are you in? Are you out? Is it a maybe for you? You can weigh in with the fellas here and myself, 605-362-3776, coming up next on Overtime. What stands out about Chicago? And without being mean, this team is not good right now. They gained less than 12 feet of offense in the first half against the Niners. They're in bad sorts. What stands out, and is this a potential trap game for Minnesota?
Oh, it's always a trap game when these two teams play, and this is kind of the cliche, throwing records out the window. Like, this is an example of what we talk about. We say at 11-2 versus 4-8. So they're probably due for something positive, and it would make all the sense in the world in the realm of the NFC North rivalry that it would be against the Vikings. However, I'm not worried about this one. Usually I save all of my those damn Bears talkers for when the Vikings play at Soldier Field, because that's when things really get kooky. We saw it a couple weeks ago. I think they're due to play well. I don't think Caleb Williams is bad. I think he's going to end up to be pretty good if they hire a quarterback whisperer. But we just played them, so we know that their defensive secondary is pretty decent, pretty darn good, and they're going to give Justin Jefferson the utmost attention. I'm gonna hope that because we'll have home cooking, it won't be as tight of a game as it devolved into the last time they met. I don't fear the Bears, but as always, even when it used to be the lowly Lions, you kind of say, all right, is this a division game? Are they going to play really feisty against us?
And really hard to beat a team 2 times a year, even harder to beat a team 3 times in one season. Janik, if things come off the rails for Minnesota, give me a prediction on the negative side. What will go wrong for Minnesota? Where can the Bears exploit the Minnesota Vikings on Monday?
Okay, so Vikings generally win when they win the turnover battle. Caleb Williams has not thrown an interception in 2 months. And if the Vikings can take advantage of his mistakes, or if he doesn't make any, it could be a close game. turnover battle is definitely the key for the Vikings in every single week.
And that's the key, of course, on Monday Night Football. Dustin, a key for you to take care of the Chicago Bears. A lot of people are saying, we're going to steamroll this team. We're going to win this game by 20, 14 points, something like that, and continue to look good. Give me a key positive or negative for the ball game Monday night.
Sure, it's a broken record when I get on your microphone. It is run the football. The one thing the Bears don't do well on defense is stop the run. And if they can get Aaron Jones and Cam Akers going, we can kind of see a replica of what happened against the Falcons, where they win by more than one score. So I would say let Aaron Jones have another bounce back game. He didn't fumble last week, and let him get 100 yards and maybe a touchdown or two.
Bears at Vikings, Monday Night Football, game number 1 of a Monday Night Football doubleheader. That gets going at 7 o'clock, ABC and ESPN+. Vikings are a 7-point favorite. Falcons at the Raiders, 7:30. Monday Night Football, second half of the doubleheader. ESPN, Atlanta is a 4-point road favorite in the game. Janik, before we go to break, my friend, your home country is getting some NFL football. As of this week, the NFL will play a regular season game in Berlin for the first time next season. What was your initial reaction to this? I know that this was kind of anticipated, but what do you expect to see out of Berlin there, and what kind of overall venue will this be for the NFL?
So I personally have not been to a German NFL game. I've been to London 3 times already. But Berlin, we know for sure the tickets will be sold out, the stadium will be sold out, probably 500,000 requests for tickets. So stadium's going to be packed. It's going to be a lot of different fan bases at the game, and I hope this time they send a better team than Giants Panthers.
Than Giants Panthers. That was the game just earlier this year. Berlin will get their first ever NFL game. And again, a lot to look forward to there. The matchup not set, but that as of this week, the announcement from the National Football League as the next first-time host of a National Football League contest coming up next season. Coming up next, we're talking all things Sam Darnold. Do you have a strong opinion on if you want Sam Darnold back, or if you're ready to hand the reins over to J.J. McCarthy? 605-362-3776. You can join me over the break, and you can let your voice be heard here on Overtime. I went to bat for Sam Darnold earlier this week, plain and simply because he's playing pretty well. He clearly likes playing in Minnesota, at home here, playing within the system, and he is a known commodity at this point. J.J. McCarthy is not. I don't care how big of a fan you are of his game, still a rookie quarterback. Next year, he will make likely his first NFL start. You don't know what you have in J.J. McCarthy, so maybe it makes sense to bring back Sam Darnold. Of course, we'll hear from Dustin and Janik and their opinion on the matter, but I want to hear from you. 605-362-3776. We'll do that next on Overtime.
Don't miss a moment of pro sports action. Stay connected and download the app for Overtime on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Hour number 1 on a Thursday, always reserved for Minnesota Vikings talk. We got a dynamic duo joining us once again. Janik Eckhart of PurplePTSD.com, Dustin Baker of Vikes Now on YouTube, VikingsTerritory.com, and it's time to fire up the debate cannons. 605-362-3776. Are you a Viking fan out there that really wants to see Sam Darnold back with this team? I know that these gentlemen across from me are going to say, hey, thanks so much for all you've done for us, Sam. We're done. It's not realistic, but I'm excited to get their common sense, rational take on this. We'll start over with Janik. Janik, Sam Darnold's playing really great football. Best game of his career by most measures this past week, 5 touchdowns. So, yes, we are overreacting to Sam Darnold. But what is the probability? Give me a percentage that Sam Darnold is back with Minnesota in some capacity next season.
I would say 5%.
5%.
He has definitely earned another deal somewhere, but just not. The Vikings are just not going to do it. They built the roster last offseason by handing out contracts to star players like Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw. They paid Jonathan Grenard in free agency. I pretty sure they want to get out of that paying a quarterback money and want to enter the J.J. McCarthy era, giving a rookie, having a quarterback on a rookie contract to build the roster with their resources.
Minnesota Vikings cap space as it stands right now for next year, I wanted to say it was $78 million. Is that accurate? And who's to say you're already got a rookie quarterback, rookie contract, J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold playing really great. Sam Darnold next year probably gives you a better chance to get back to the postseason than JJ based on everything we know right now. You got $78 million. Let's say that's the number. You got to pay your draft class. You don't have a lot of draft picks to pay. You could go out and get a free agent or two for $10, $15 million. Why not pay Sam Darnold $35, $40 million just for one more year?
Because half the team is scheduled to hit free agency. That's why that number is $78 million. So they're going to have to re-sign the guys that they like, go get their extras, and then by the time we get to that point, we're going to look down and be like, oh, there's only 15, 20 million left. And so the reason that I agree with Janik that I think there's probably closer to for me, about 20% chance that Darnold goes and explores the market and is like, oh, I don't want to be a bridge quarterback again. I'll just come back to the Vikings. They said I can compete this summer. And then maybe there's a marriage of a $20 million, $25 million one-year deal. I still don't see that happening. The reason that this isn't going to happen is we just got done of 6 years of arguing about Kirk Cousins' money. And the argument always there, trust me, I was involved in them, was we're paying a good quarterback elite money, and he's not dragging us to the postseason. We are in Sam Darnold mania right now because he just threw his 5 touchdowns. But Sam Darnold is a good quarterback who is not elite. So we would be like whisked back right to the Cousins era if they pay him, 3 years, $120 million or something like that. So for Janik and I, it's not a matter of maybe J.J. McCarthy will be good. I know he's going to be good so long as he's healthy. And I think Janik feels that way too. And I'm guessing that's how the Vikings brass feels. It's not some big mystery of whether or not McCarthy is going to be good. And if Kevin O'Connell could get this type of performance from Darnold. He got 2 games worth of it from Josh Dobbs last year. Cousins looked great before he tore his Achilles. I know that McCarthy can at least be to a Dak Prescott level in the NFL, and the goal would be that he gets up into that Joe Burrow tier. So for me, it is a no-brainer that the Vikings, should not re-sign Sam Darnold for $40 million, and that they will not.
When it comes to circles, purpleptsd.com, Vikes Now, YouTube, VikingsTerritory.com, are there any other writers or colleagues for you guys that are going to bat for Sam Darnold this week and in the near future? Are there some voices out there that might be a little loud saying that what I'm saying, known commodity, unknown commodity, another year? I'm not saying Sam Darnold for the rest of his career. I'm just saying best chance to win next year, another year for J.J. McCarthy, that Packers model that we've talked about so many times. Anyone going to bat like I am for Sam Darnold this week?
Yeah, we have Kyle Jowdry at VikingsTerritory.com. He's one of our editors, and his argument, this was even before this week, is that the Vikings love to have it both ways. They love that insurance, that peace of mind, so that they will find a way to bring Darnold back. Now, I can't remember if his argument is that Darnold will be underwhelmed by what he sees on the free agent market and therefore comes back cheaper than we'd think. But yeah, I mean, I know exactly why people want Darnold back, because he's good and we're 11-2. It's not that I think Darnold stinks or he's going to fall off a cliff. It's just that when you have a young general manager who's spent the last 3 off seasons and is going to be 4 building the plan that Janik talked about, paying all these guys, everything goes into the toilet if you have to turn around and pay a quarterback $45 million, because then you're hamstrung. And this is what we've done already for the last 6 years. So yeah, I completely empathize with the people that would love to see Darnold back. But the only way it makes sense is if he finds a way to do it again for 15 or 20 million.
So combined between the two of you, we're at a 25% probability that he'll be back. That is not good. So what we're going to do now is talk about where he could go. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk at NBCSports.com, talking about the landing spots, the Jets, the Steelers, possibly is what he said, the Titans, the Raiders, the Giants, the Saints, the Seahawks, and maybe the LA Rams. To me, it's more than a maybe for the LA Rams. I wrote an article at ESPNSiouxFalls.com. To me, that is the landing spot due to the fact that Matthew Stafford is old. He's kind of toyed around with the idea of retirement. And if he doesn't retire, the Rams have a significant out in his contract. It's $50 million dead cap. That today feels like a little bit of a drop in the bucket in dead cap numbers to move on, get younger at quarterback, and might not have that big of a drop off. If it's not the LA Rams, and we'll talk about that destination in a moment, if it's not the Rams, what makes the most sense for Sam Darnold next year? Let's go to Janik first.
I like the New York Giants for him. They need a quarterback who can give the ball to Malik Neighbors and the other receivers, and they haven't had that. Daniel Jones, even in his best season, he threw 15 touchdown passes, and Sam Darnold, he could be the right quarterback for Brian Daboll in his offense.
And certainly could be. Is there a landing spot on that list or off that list that makes sense that's not the LA Rams to you?
No, we need to get into that Ram stuff hot and heavy here pretty soon. I've been saying that one for about 2 months.
You have.
The Giants, if I was going to bet on it, for the exact reason that Janik just said, but I'm really fearful, but also assuming that Darnold is going to encounter another bridge quarterback situation. The team we're about to talk about is the only team that could probably hand him the baton, and then that's it. They don't need to draft anybody, and we'll get into those reasons in a second. And then to summarize on those folks that do think Darnold is the real deal and we should take it back, you and I were in this studio about a month and a half ago, and Bill Belichick, we saw a clip where, I think you played it, when he was talking about Darnold and the Vikings, and somebody said, what if he wins the Super Bowl with the Vikings? And Belichick was like, well, I don't know what more you want the guy to do. Mm-hmm. Like, even if he takes you there, you got to bring him back. So I know where you're coming from. Even Bill Belichick agreed. And everybody around the league knew this was coming. You started to see it in September. There were folks lining up, former quarterbacks, Belichick, I think even Tom Brady, that said, like, this guy can ball, and you're going to see it.
And he certainly has a lot of the prototypical traits, and he was in New York with the Jets, and that fell off the rails. Then to the Panthers, that is not a good landing spot, despite a 3-0 start to his Panther career. 1 year, that big reboot in San Francisco turned out to be the big turning point in his career year in so many different ways already, and we still got, 4 games left in this regular season. Rams landing spot, what stands out the most? I highlighted Stafford potential retirement, the potential out in his contract, but the offensive system familiarity probably the most impactful for me that makes that such a good landing spot for Darnold.
Yes, let's see. Matthew Stafford will be 37 in a couple months, and I think we've learned now with Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets and Kirk Cousins kind of face planting in Atlanta that not every quarterback plays to 45 like Tom Brady. So there's a reasonable expectation that Stafford could ponder retirement. And then you'd look down at the Rams depth chart and be like, oh, it's Stetson Bennett, and then who else? Well, Sam Darnold will be perfect because he can do exactly what he's done in Minnesota with Sean McVay and the Rams, and maybe even do it better there. So this one makes all the sense in the world. It's the only place where I think he can waltz in and start henceforth. It doesn't have to worry about some dude nipping at his heels like McCarthy in Minnesota or Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck or any of those guys. And it just makes too much sense that Kevin O'Connell would probably talk to McVay and be like, you saw the guy ball. The guy can ball. And then we'd be right where we were with Baker Mayfield a year ago and into this season is Darnold gets his 3-year deal, $40 million, all of it guaranteed. And then Darnold is just the franchise quarterback of the Rams. It's really the only place he can do it, unless Tua Tagovailoa took like another concussion here in the last 4 games.
And certainly there are a lot of landing spots out there, but the ideal landing spot for Sam Darnold is out in sunny Los Angeles with the Rams. ESPNSiouxFalls.com with that article right now. We're coming back with who wins and why. Yes, we'll be picking the Packers game, the Vikings game, everything in between. We've got Dustin Baker and Janik Eckhart in for one more segment on your Thursday. The debate rages on, but apparently feels pretty one-sided. I might be the only person, of course I'm not a Vikings fan, but the only person talking about the only person saying that Sam Darnold will be back or should be back. We take the break, come back with much more of Overtime coming up next on ESPN Sioux Falls.
It's so convenient. Sports on the go. Download the free app now. This is ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. Final segment of hour number 1 on this Thursday. Super Vikings Thursday on Overtime. Dustin Baker of Vikes Now on YouTube, VikingsTerritory.com, and Janik Eckhart of PurplePTSD.com are our guests. It is time for Who Wins and Why. The Green Bay Packers will be in Seattle for Sunday Night Football. Vikings are home against the Bears for Monday Night Football. It's time to fire it up. Who wins and why for Week 15. It makes me sad we're already this deep into the National Football League season. But off we go tonight, Thursday Night Football, the Rams and the Niners, two teams that we have discussed this hour already so far. Niners are home, Rams on the road, 7:15 Prime Video. Who's hungrier? Who's better? Who needs it more? The answer to that question is debatable, but for me right now, I think the Niners are going to feel this immense pressure tonight, and I think they're going to win it at home. Give me San Francisco to start out Week 15 with a win. Let's go to you, Dustin.
Here, as a Vikings fan, we're going to spin this, though, no matter what happens. If the Rams lose, the Vikings are in the postseason. If the 49ers lose, we're going to be like, good, we don't want them to get in the postseason anyhow, because that's like the one place I don't want to go in a wildcard weekend is at San Francisco.
Janik, what's your pick?
I'm picking the 49ers. It's a must-win game for both, but Kyle Shanahan has dominated the series with Sean McVay, so I'm picking him.
Certainly a lot of road favorites this weekend of the NFL. That's the way I'll go early. Kansas City at Cleveland. Give me the Chiefs. Bengals at the Titans. The Brian Callahan Bowl, if you will. Give me the Bengals to win on the road. And then D.C. in New Orleans. They need to stack the wins. They're hanging on to that final playoff spot. Give me the Commanders on the road. Let's go to Janik.
I'm picking the Chiefs over Cleveland because I just think Chiefs defense is too good to let Jameis cook. The Bengals are going to win again, and they might run hot at the end of the year and squeeze into the final playoff seed. And Washington is going to beat the Saints and hang on to their playoff spot.
What about for you, Dustin?
I'm taking the upset. I guess I'm watching too much AFC North Hard Knocks. I think the Browns can get this done. It's weird how, close your ears, Chiefs fans, by a lot of advanced metrics, they're so middle of the road, but they just find ways to win. I think eventually they're going to lose some games, and this is a prime spot for it. So give me the Browns in an upset. Certainly the Bengals over the Titans. The Bengals have a chance to get to 9-8 and see how the chips fall to maybe get in the postseason. And then I don't know if the Saints are going to start Jake Haener or
Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I was going to say Ritter Rattler. So give me certainly Washington over New Orleans.
4 other games in the noon slate. Baltimore at the Giants. That one's easy. Circle the purple team. Dallas at the Panthers. That one should be easy. I think it's going to be a good ball game. I would like to take the upset because the Panthers are playing winning football for just about the entirety of games. But, of course, they are the Panthers. They find ways to lose. Give me Dallas on the road. That'll be a very pro-Dallas crowd in Charlotte as well. The Jets and the Jags sleep through that one, but give me the New York Jets. And lastly, for noon, Miami and Houston. Big game for both teams. Bigger game for Houston. They need it so badly to get these wins, start beating good, formidable teams. Give me the Texans. Let's go over to Janik for those 4 picks.
Oh, definitely picking Baltimore over the Giants. The Giants are just not playing for anything. Dallas will lose at Carolina. Panthers have been sneaky good in the last few weeks. New York against Jacksonville sounds like a game nobody should watch. I think the Jets will finally win a game. And Miami will lose at Houston.
Okay, moving on over to you, Dustin.
I want to point out that these games really suck.
Yeah, they're awful football games.
Just the docket. Tonight's is good, but the rest are not good. Certainly Baltimore over the Giants, no explanation needed. I like the Panthers to take down the Cowboys because they have really turned it around. They're going to be some folks' sexy picks next year to be decent. And then the Jets, if the amount of times you and I picked them, if they had wins for every time they did it, they'd be in the postseason. But you have to take them over Mac Jones and the Jaguars. And then Miami, Houston is a classic example of it's a coin flip, but I'm taking the home team, and I'll take the Texans.
I pride myself on being pretty rational. I'm going to be a little bit irrational here, though. Denver, big game. They're going to win at home against Indy. Slam the door on the Colts. The door will not be slammed on the Cincinnati Bengals, who also will play the Broncos in the coming weeks. Buffalo and Detroit. Here's where I'm being irrational and bitter and ugly. I can't stand the Lions. Give me the Bills on the road. Get right game for them. Lot to play for. Buffalo looking to keep pace with Kansas City. Challenge for a number 1 seed. Give me the Bills. And then the Battle of Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh or Philly. Philly is manufacturing their own drama down the stretch, despite the fact that they've won 9 straight games. Pittsburgh, classy, buttoned up. Philly, train wreck, but Steve keeps on winning. Give me Pittsburgh on the road. Road game, but that's going to be a hotly contested crowd. A lot of alcohol, I'm sure, in the stadium. But give me Pittsburgh to win on the road in Philly.
I have the Broncos over the Colts. They're gonna get close to solidifying that spot that we think the Bengals might be able to get. This one, I'm kind of with you with that angst about the Lions. I think my argument is a little bit more logical than yours. It's if we don't think the Lions are going to go 16-1, this is probably the game they're going to lose. So is it more realistic the Giants are the Lions are 15-2 or 16-1? I will go with the Bills. They got to lose at some point. The Lions, that is. I have the Eagles. I don't know why they have feuds between their wide receiver and quarterback. Like, what are we doing here? But I do like them at home in the Battle of Pennsylvania. And then I will take my Cardinals, who have fallen on harsh times in the last 2 weeks, to beat the Patriots, although I am a Drake May guy.
Okay, Janik, you're up.
Denver will win the Peyton Manning Bowl at home because they are just a more complete team than the Colts. I think Buffalo will win in Detroit because Detroit is coming off a big win. Buffalo is coming off a close loss, so I think that will switch this time. Philadelphia will win at home because Saquon Barkley is just carrying this franchise to a great record. And the Cardinals will win at home against New England.
All right, I'm on the Cardinals as well. Moving forward, final 4 games here. Chargers, Buccaneers. That's a good matchup, but I'm going to favor the Chargers at home. Packers in Seattle. I'm scared of this one. I told you guys before we started the show, Green Bay loses, Seattle wins. A couple other things break against Green Bay. We could be talking about the Packers not making the playoffs if that were to happen. I think Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love playing good football. They're aware of that. They get the road win in a very tough place to play Monday night. Vikings circling them against the Chicago Bears, pretty darn easy. And then Falcons must win. They'll get it done against Vegas. Go for it, Janik.
I got Tampa Bay beating the Chargers because Justin Herbert is banged up and Baker Mayfield just can make it happen. Green Bay, Seattle is almost a coin flip, but I'm leaning Seattle because they are at home. Atlanta will bounce back in Las Vegas, and Kirk Cousins maybe finally throw another touchdown. And the Vikings will beat the Chicago Bears at home.
All right, Dustin, your final 4.
All right, so this let's see, where do we leave off?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, Los Angeles Chargers is a really fun game to watch, but I'm going to take the Chargers. I think Herbert will play. He always plays through it. They're 8-5. I think they're slightly better than the Buccaneers, although I will not be surprised if Tampa wins here. I'm taking Green Bay because they might be feeling the heat a little bit after losing to the Lions, and then the Seahawks have won 4 straight. I think they are due for a loss. I have the Vikings defeating the Bears. I don't usually pick lopsided wins when these two teams meet, but this one I feel good about. 34-17 Vikings over Bears. And then one saving grace for this really recent Falcons downturn is their schedule. Was easy and remains pretty darn easy. If there was ever a schedule to get right and get back on top of the NFC South, it would be this one. So I'll take the Falcons to get back on track over the Raiders.
That's who wins and why for Week 15 of the National Football League season, and that is Dustin Baker and Janik Eckhart. Janik visiting from overseas. PurplePTSD.com. Dustin Baker, check out his work. Vikes Now on YouTube. VikingsTerritory.com. Gentlemen, another great week. Another Super Vikings Thursday. Rooting against you guys, but we'll be talking about the 12-2 Minnesota Vikings next week, I'm sure. Thanks as always.
Yeah, likewise. We'll talk to you in 1 week.
All right, Janik Eckhart and Dustin Baker, our guests for hour number 1. We're overtime on overtime. Hour number 2 next on your Sioux Falls Sports Leader.